WWL-TV, Channel 4, New Orleans. John Snell, Hoda Kotb, Jim Henderson, and meteorologist Dave Barnes. This is Louisiana's news leader, Channel 4's Eyewitness News Night Watch.
Hurricane Andrew bears down on the south-central Louisiana coast as New Orleans apparently dodges the full force of the storm.
And when it hits, everything's got to go to high ground. There's no way to get around it.
South of Lafayette, people spend the day packing up and getting out of Andrew's way. The storm chews up more of Grand Isle's fragile coastline as the island town feels hurricane-force wind. Governor Edwards orders out hundreds of National Guard troops in New Orleans and around the state to try to prevent looting. And in the Gulf of Mexico, 4 men are stranded in a boat when the engine dies. The Coast Guard makes a dramatic rescue. Good evening. We have some breaking news from the top tonight from St. John Parish. The sheriff's office says a tornado has touched down in the Bell Point subdivision in the reserve area. There are reports of numerous injuries. We have a crew on the way to the scene. Hope to have more on this story later in the newscast. Now let's get the latest on the projected path of the storm from Dave Barnes and Nash Roberts. Dave?
Well, John, the thing to look at right now is our radar, and as you can see, there are some heavy showers and thunderstorms at the present time that are moving across the region. And these are what are producing the tornadoes and strong gusty winds. Now, the strongest wind gust we've had has been just 45 miles per hour, but we're kind of protected here in the city. I suspect that much of the region, especially across the lake, is receiving wind gusts of the order of 50 or 60 miles per hour. But these are going to produce some heavy thunderstorms and possibly some tornadoes at times. We must be aware of that. We're under a tornado watch, as a matter of fact. A quick look at our coordinates right now. They are 29.1 north and 91.2 west. Storm still moving toward the northwest, about 15 miles per hour. But let's go to Nash now in his office and see what he's looking at the present time. Nash?
Okay, thank you, Dave. Let's take a quick look at our little radar tracking chart. We started tracking about 4:30 this afternoon with the Slidell radar of the National Weather Service, and it's working out very well. We've also been very successful with WWL's radar, tracking with that too. And this series of eye positions will show you that the storm is tracking strong northwest and headed for the area between Morgan City and Lafayette, right out in this area around Vermilion Bay. At 10 p.m. I have the position at 29.1 north and 91.2 west, 100 miles southeast of Lafayette. Here's Lafayette here, and there's the storm right there. And then 110 southwest of New Orleans. There's New Orleans there, and the storm's sitting right there. It's moving northwest, as I told you, at 15 miles an hour. It looks to me like the storm will go right over a little point here called Point of Fair, due south of Morgan City, about 11 tonight, get into East Coast, Blanche Bay, and then eventually go over Marsh Island. That's Marsh Island right there. That's due south of Lafayette. And so that is the general path I think that's going to happen. It should hit Point of Fair maybe 11 p.m. tonight, go over Marsh Island about 1 tomorrow morning. So it'll be in this area between 11 and about 2 or 3 in the morning and head on up. Now what it does after that, they always, a lot of times, have a tendency to go north and then turn northeast when they get into the prevailing westerlies. So we'll have to watch that, so make sure that it doesn't make a real sharp turn and come back closer to New Orleans and Baton Rouge in that area when we don't expect it. But of course, when it goes inland, it'll diminish quite rapidly and in velocity and intensity. Vermilion Bay is the area late tonight, 8 to 12 foot tidal surge at least, 120 mile an hour winds plus right around a very tight center, 3 to 6 inches of rain and maybe even more than that. That's the way it looks to me right now. Let's go back to Dave.
Nash, thanks very much. Satellite confirms very clearly what Nash was talking about, the storm moving toward the northwest at about 15 miles per hour. But, John, I'll have much more on this storm later on in this news broadcast.
And all you have to do is look at those maps to realize that Morgan City will bear much of the brunt of Hurricane Andrew. Dave McNamara is there. Dave? Dave McNamara, can you hear me?
Now, the entire town of Morgan City, all 15,000 residents who live here, were ordered out of their homes this morning, along with all of St. Mary Parish. Those who have decided to stay are now preparing for the worst. And as darkness fell this evening, Hurricane Andrew let the residents here know that he's on the way. As darkness fell in Morgan City, Hurricane Andrew began to lower the boom on this South Louisiana oil town. As the winds and rain kicked up, the swirling clouds of a fierce Gulf storm were visible in the fading light. Morgan City has braced itself for the worst. The 55,000 residents of St. Mary Parish were ordered to leave their homes this morning. Some Weather Service projections say the hurricane could push up tides 12 to 14 feet here. It is this 22-foot-high flood wall that people here hope will protect Morgan City from the storm tides of Hurricane Andrew. The wall runs the length of the city's business district and older residential areas. However, there are some parts of Morgan City that aren't so lucky. The most vulnerable spot is here along the shore of Lake Palourde, where there are no levees to hold back the floodwaters. City officials say at least 2/3 of Morgan City's residents have evacuated. This family is among those who stayed behind. They were saying that this is a really dangerous storm, and they were ordering people to evacuate. Why did you stay behind?
I have nowhere to go.
Are you worried about this storm?
Yeah, I've been through one before. I went through Camille.
Morgan City police are on the streets enforcing a dusk-to-dawn curfew to prevent any looters from trying to take advantage of this town's misfortune. Now, we have had intermittent squalls here since that time around 7 o'clock this evening when those showers that you saw started moving through the area. Right now we're in one of the lulls between those bands of squalls that have been moving through. A lot of the people who have decided to stay here in Morgan City are spending time over to shelter, and Mike Ross has been covering that this evening. Mike?
Dave, we checked with city officials here in Morgan City, and both of the evacuation centers in this area are filled to capacity at this hour. As you mentioned, most residents have decided to leave. More than 60% decided to get out of town. Those who are staying behind in the evacuation shelters just waiting to see what happens tonight. They watched from the front steps of the city auditorium, wondering what the storm would do to their town.
Well, I'll be glad when it's over with.
The storm outside was causing a lot of concern inside this evacuation center, but folks were trying to cope as best they could. 1,200 people filled the auditorium, resigned to spend the night and weather the storm.
We feel pretty good about it. We're as ready as we can be. We're preparing for the worst and hope for the best.
Some passed the time with a friendly card game, all the while wondering what kind of hand Hurricane Andrew would deal them.
I've been in one when I was 3, but I'm from Tennessee and I'm not really used to it now. I just hope that everything works out okay because I don't want to lose my stuff or my life.
Others found comfort by reading the scriptures, confident of divine protection.
We are supposed to be calm and just don't worry about it because the Lord is in control.
Even though they're in an evacuation center and the hurricane is at their doorsteps, Dave, most people we talked to tonight seem to be in pretty good spirits. And I think the good news here in Morgan City is that there's been very, very small amounts of damage, hardly any at all.
In fact, we were talking to some of the officials here at the City Hall a short while ago, and they have had basically no reports of anything serious, no flooding yet. They're watching the areas that they think are low spots that may cause some problems. And so far, the highest reports we've heard about any gusts of wind had been in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range. But in terms of this storm, it's still very early in the evening for Morgan City.
That's right. That's the situation. Back to you, John. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Conditions are just beginning to deteriorate in the Vermilion Parish town of Abbeville. That's where Mike Longman is.
It started raining here in Abbeville at about 8:30. So far, we've just been having some squalls in terms of winds. That's expected a little bit later on. Now, to the south, a police roadblock was set up to block people from going down to Pecan Island. State police say 3 people are determined to ride out Andrew on the island. They've been told of the peril. They've decided to stay.
They're there because they want to be there. They want to ride it out. we've cautioned them to leave. If they stay now, they're taking their life into their own hands now.
State police dropped that roadblock about 8:30 tonight because they say the forecast for rising tides would strand them on the far side, and they do not want to be left there. As for the coastal road all the way from Cameron to Pecan Island, it is deserted. Buildings are boarded up. We ran into a rancher who had a flat tire. He was trying to move 400 head of cattle north. He said he was around in 57 when 1,000 cattle drowned during a hurricane along that same stretch of road. And even though Abbeville is a small town, just down the road here, there's a store with 2 people sitting out front in lawn chairs. They say they saw what happened in Miami. They are afraid of looting. They're going to sit out the storm at their store. There is plenty of police presence here. And again, we're expecting Andrew to start being felt around midnight tonight. Reporting via satellite, Mike Longman, Eyewitness News, Night Watch.
Well, Houma may be a little closer to the east of New Orleans, or a little closer east to New Orleans, but it certainly is feeling Andrew tonight. Len Cannon has been there throughout the day and joins us now by telephone. Len?
John, you can definitely tell that we are on the edge of a very large storm here in Houma. For the past hour and a half, it has been raining off and on. There have been high winds. We have seen the winds come and go. It's been really strange. But let me tell you some of the problems they've been having. Power is out in much of Terrebonne Parish. We have seen 2 power lines down on Grand Caillou Road. They're leaning against some of the telephone wires, so it's a very dangerous situation there. We are told that there's some roof damage to some of the businesses throughout the city of Houma. Many people have decided to stay put in the city. Most of the evacuation has been from communities south of Houma, communities like Dulac and Montague and Chauvin and Cocodrie. They have moved further towards the city of Houma, staying in some evacuation centers. We are staying right now in the Terrebonne Sheriff's Department's office, so we are fairly safe here, but you can tell that the rain keeps coming down harder and harder, and there is a fear that once the storm builds and hits land, that they're going to get quite a bit of the brunt of the storm. So we're going to wait and see how that plays out. John?
Len, there's been kind of a sense of relief. We're not completely out of the woods in New Orleans, but I gather people in Houma are still taking it very seriously tonight?
Very much so. I think that everyone is waiting, like all of us are, to see exactly where this storm will hit and what the consequences will be. A lot of people here feel that there's a very good chance that Hurricane Andrew will do a lot of damage in this area, if not in the city of Houma itself, then just south where you have a lot of the fishing camps and you have people have a lot of boats on the bayous. There is a lot of concern for that area.
All right, Len Cannon tonight in Houma, thanks. Grand Isle is being socked tonight with near hurricane force winds, gusts of up to 70 miles an hour. Earlier today, waves were eating away at the shoreline of Grand Isle. Tonight, Jefferson Parish Emergency Management says 6-foot seas are battering the island, and officials say the entire island now is covered with 1.5 to 2 feet of water. What they do not know yet is how the shoreline is holding up. May not know that until perhaps tomorrow morning. Governor Edwards is concerned about the possibility of looting around the metro area of New Orleans and really around the southern part of the state in the storm's wake. Edwards has called out 250 National Guard troops in New Orleans alone to patrol with New Orleans police. So far, no reports of looting in this neck of the woods. The Guard hopes that its presence will deter any in this area and also in those areas that may be harder hit. Parts of New Orleans and southeast Louisiana are in the dark tonight. NOPSI officials say 15,000 customers are without power in the metro area. LP&L says 33,000, twice that number. 33,000 customers in Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish have no electricity. Power line repair crews are not being dispatched at this time for safety reasons, but officials are working out of the new transmission dispatch center that they have in Gretna to get the power restored. Now, you heard Len Cannon a few minutes ago talk about downed power lines. NOPSI reminding us that that is very serious. They're telling people to stay away from any downed power lines, which may be live if you see them. Still ahead on Eyewitness News Night Watch, Hoda Kotb reports on some people who think that a hurricane's just another reason to throw a party. And a little later, a major cleanup underway at Andrew's first stop.
The critics are calling Honeymoon in Vegas the best comedy of the summer.
We're the Flying Elves, the Utah chapter.
It's a riot. Honeymoon in Vegas is loaded with laughs.
Is this great or what?
Screamingly funny. Honeymoon in Vegas is the best comedy of the summer.
Well, that's just so wonderful to hear.
It's a hunk of burnin' fun.
That just doesn't help me at all, but I appreciate the thought.
Honeymoon in Vegas, rated PG-13.
Kabluna.
Starts Friday at a theater near you.
Some companies go to great lengths to bring you their chicken. They have to. They have a long way to come. But in Marshall Durban, we raise our young, tender chickens right here in the Deep South. And in most cases, get them to market in 4 hours or less. As for chicken that comes from parts unknown, who knows how fresh it'll be? Marshall Durban, the freshest chicken going.
The Mitsubishi Galant. At a price far below Camry. It now gives you something even more substantial to reflect upon. The Galant by Mitsubishi. The word is getting around.
See one of your 3 Metro New Orleans Mitsubishi Motors dealers and take a test drive today.
Hibernia Roofing and Siding has over 75 years experience. So for all your exterior home improvement needs, call Hibernia Roofing and Siding. Our skilled craftsmen install only the highest quality materials. We offer vinyl siding, soffit and fascia systems, seamless aluminum gutters, replacement doors and windows, patio covers, and more. Call the oldest and most reputable roofing and siding company in town. Call Hibernia Roofing and Siding today. When it rains, we shine.
As we mentioned earlier in the news, we have a breaking story tonight in St. John Parish, where on the east bank of St. John, a tornado, in fact 2 tornadoes, we're told, touched down earlier tonight in 6 spots in the reserve, that would be out in the reserve Laplace area. Many injuries reported. Now, joining us by telephone is the parish president, Arnold Labat. Mr. Labat, I know it's very busy there. We appreciate your time. Could you tell us, sir, the extent of the damage, if you know it?
The extent of the damage is quite severe. We are still assessing the damage because you recognize it just happened about an hour ago. We have total power outage within the parish, so it's difficult to get around and assess the damages. We don't know that it touched down in 6 spots. On one street, we have 5 houses that have been totaled completely. There were no injuries, however, on this particular street, which is Cedar Street in Reserve. It knocked down the doctor's offices next to the River Parish Medical Center. It leveled those particular buildings. It leveled 4 built houses in the Bell Point area. We have oak trees that have knocked down. We have trailers that are overturned, and quite extensive damage. The state police are already on the scene. The National Guard is on its way. We have requested assistance from them. Our sheriff has his full force out to assist people. We're requesting as much ambulance help as that we can get so that we can bring our injured to medical centers. And we're asking that the people stay inside, away from power lines, which are down throughout the entire parish, and people could get hurt or killed by down power lines. So we have to stay away from these type of power lines with on the street.
Do you have any idea, Mr. Labat, of the number of injuries you're dealing with or the severity?
We don't have any idea of the numbers of injuries at this particular time. We are still assessing the damage. We know with the extensive damage that there is, that there will be a number of injuries. As a matter of fact, we're sure there will be many, many injuries. There are some homes we're still digging into to find out if there are any people in them that have been hurt.
But you don't really have anything confirmed on that in terms of the extent of the injuries?
At this particular time on injuries.
Did the evacuation help some? I know there were people in Laplace. Might this have been worse had not some people already gotten out of the way of the storm?
Some of them have gotten out of the way, but you have to recognize this was not caused by storm winds. Of course, it was caused by tornadoes. Our wind at this particular time is not, it's up, but not in in hurricane force at this particular time in St. John. All of our damages were caused from 2 tornadoes that came down.
Now, I don't know how much good this will do many of us in the area, but for those who are familiar with the St. John area, what subdivision or subdivisions are we talking about?
Okay, we're talking about Reserve in the Cedar area or Central Avenue area. We're talking about Bell Point area. We're talking about the River Parish Medical Center. We are talking about Riverland Estates. We're talking about Mahogany Street. And we're talking Montague Subdivision.
All right, St. John Parish President Arnold Labatt, we appreciate your time tonight. We know you're very busy. And I think Mr. Labatt had a very good point, and that is that the last thing they need, I'm sure they would tell us, would be sightseers. If you come in contact, if you are outside in that area, if you feel compelled to be outside for some reason, again, very strong, solid advice, stay away from power lines. Quite a number of schools are closed tomorrow, as you well might imagine, in the area. All schools in the Archdiocese of New Orleans, Jefferson Parish Public Schools are closed, as are St. Tammany Public and Parochial Schools, Washington Parish Public Schools, St. Bernard Public Schools. Orleans Public School employees do not have to report tomorrow. Our Lady of Holy Cross School, Christ Episcopal in Covington is closed. Victory Academy Preschool in Metairie, Delgado, Dillard, Loyola, Southeastern University, UNO, all closed. The LSU Medical School in New Orleans will be closed, as will the LSU School of Dentistry, although we are told that Tulane Medical Center will be open, and then the last one on your list there on the screen, West Jeff Technical Institute, will be closed, but they will have classes at Tulane, and the Tulane Medical Center will be open. St. Charles Parish officials have announced to us that the Hale Boggs Bridge is closed, I assume because of high winds. So if you're on the east or the west bank trying to get across the river in that area, something very important, Hale Boggs Bridge is closed. Dave Barnes will be back with the latest look at the storm after this.
We were in a foreign country on vacation when my husband felt a numbness in his left arm. We went to a hospital with an international reputation where they discovered he had an inoperable brain condition. The doctors thought it would be necessary for us to go all the way to Massachusetts for radiosurgery. But when we realized the same technology was available here in Louisiana at East Jefferson General Hospital, we were delighted and relieved. It meant coming home.
East Jefferson General Hospital, world-class technology right here at home.
Two tough companies present one tough giveaway. Right now, Quaker State One Tough Motor Oil and Time Saver join forces to bring you tickets to 5 Saints games. You and a guest will see all the tough hits up close in the Superdome. Come to any Time Saver today and look for the Quaker State display for an official entry form. Quaker State is relentlessly tested for maximum engine protection against wear and sludge. One tough giveaway from Quaker State One Tough Motor Oil. Come to Time Saver and register to win Tough Saints tickets today.
You've heard all about the Woody and Mia scandal, but did you know almost the same thing happened to Charlie Chaplin nearly 50 years ago? Next time on Entertainment Tonight, you'll get the inside story on the notorious sex scandals that have rocked and shocked Hollywood, and there's a lot of them.
Hollywood is built on scandal. Practically everything they've ever done around this town is scandalous.
Make sure you don't miss out on the inside story only on the next Entertainment Tonight.
Tonight at 10:35 on WWL-TV Channel 4.
When the real Superstore says we're cheaper than Schwegman and Winn-Dixie, we mean on every grocery price. And you can believe it.
The following is a legal notification of a public sale.
An automobile sale featuring South Louisiana's largest selection of Chevrolet cars and trucks.
Offered by your Super Chevy dealers in cooperation with Chevrolet Motor Division.
All 1992 models have been marked and discounted for immediate sale.
Get 2.9% financing on South Louisiana's #1 selling truck, Chevy's full size.
With a special factory discount and generous rebate, save nearly $3,600 on Chevy's S10.
Visit your favorite Super Chevy dealer now, because the 92s are disappearing fast.
Our thoughts are with those folks in St. John Parish. Hopefully things will work out for them with the 2 tornadoes reported, but it is graphic evidence of the power of these storms, and you think there's the potential for them to produce some very strong winds, and obviously tornado is always a threat.
John, several things. This is an active hurricane in that it looks like it's going to produce quite a bit of rain as we examine radar data. It's also obvious that it's going to be active from the standpoint of producing a number of tornadoes. And also, you remember we've talked in the past about these microbursts from thunderstorms, strong gusty winds, very short-lived, that have downed so many airplanes around the country. Well, that's going to be part of the scenario with this sort of storm system, too.
Even Dave McNamara, who is fairly close to the eye there in Morgan City, I mean, I saw a tape coming in on satellite feeds tonight of reporters in the stereotypical wind-driven rain, you know, they're just soaked, and you see 20 minutes later a person standing out. It's almost deceiving.
That's because you go through these lulls. As the bands go through, that's when the threat is the greatest for tornadoes and heavy rain, and then as you get in between them,
even that close to the ice. Something to keep in mind in Houma. You can go really wet, very severe conditions.
Be very careful, because the severe conditions will return repeatedly until a storm finally moves well inland. John, outside right now, it's kind of surprising. In a hurricane situation, the temperature's in the 70s. Usually it's about 80, 81. It's 77 at the airport, 77 at the Audubon Zoo, and 75 in Slidell. The humidity is 87%. Yes, we have thunderstorms in progress in the area right now. Winds are east at 29, gusting to 38 miles per hour, which is just about to gale force. And the pressure is 29.86, and of course, it's falling. We take a look at radar and verify that we have many of those feeder bands that are rotating around the center of the storm in a counterclockwise direction. Here's one north of the lake. Here's another one across the lake in the city. We have several down in this region to the southwest of us around the storm center as it continues to work its way toward the Chefaliah and Vermilion Bay area on toward the northwest at the present time. And of course, our satellite certainly verifies it's continuing to the northwest. There appears to be at the very end of this loop maybe a slight temporary turn toward the west-northwest, but the general trend is just about toward the northwest, and we think that's going to continue through the nighttime hours, and eventually it's going to turn a little bit more toward the north, and possibly later on in maybe 12 or 24 hours more toward the northeast. But we're concerned about it now during the next few hours. Now, right along this area here is the lower portion of Terrebonne Parish. And look, that's where the eye wall is moving across that region right now. Hurricane force winds certainly occurring there. I suspect the tides there right now are up 8, 9, possibly even 10 feet. They were up to 8 feet in Grand Isle when it was swept across and inundated a little earlier this afternoon and this evening. The highest water reports we have so far include that report from Grand Isle. We do have reports from Causeway, 3 feet, the Industrial Canal, 4 feet, but look at Bayou Dupree and also Bayou Bienvenue, up around 6.5, 7 feet. The Wrigley's around 4 feet. More water will move into the lake, and the lake level, I think, tomorrow will probably be up somewhere in the 3 to 5, 4 to 6 foot category. But as a general rule, around the region, around the lake, 4 to 8 feet. The 7 to 8 feet would be where there's a funneling effect or an embankment that is causing the water to pile up around some of the levees, and that wouldn't last too long. But still, we're going to see that high water around for quite a while. Now, in the region, just to the north of the eye, just to the head of it, and to the east of where it comes ashore, as much as 9 to 15 feet. We know Grand Isle already had that 8 feet, and then out a little further to the east, 6 to 9 feet east of the river on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I don't think they'll have more than 3 to 5 feet, maybe even a little bit less than that. Andrew is about 90 miles southwest of New Orleans, located at 29.1 north and 91.2 west. Again, it's moving toward the northwest at 15. And here's where we think it'll go in, right in here to the west of Morgan City and to the east of Lake Charles, heading not too far from Lafayette. So that's the best estimate at this time. But we're going to see the effects of the weather of that storm for quite a while. For instance, tonight, of course, we'll continue to have occasional showers and thunderstorms, additional rains of 2 to 4 feet expected. We've already had 2 to 4 inches, that is. We've already had an inch or 2 or 3 in various locations this afternoon and this evening. Winds easterly 20 to 35 miles per hour, gusting to as high as 65, but of course, in a tornado, should it occur, and it's possible anywhere in those feeder bands, it would be much stronger. And again, the tides around the area around 4 to 8 feet above sea level, south and areas to the east of the river a little bit more than that. Thunderstorms, yes. Tomorrow we're still going to have some scattered to numerous showers and thunderstorms, and additional rains tomorrow of 2 to 3 feet are certainly in the realm of possibility. Winds will drop off a bit, southeast to 15 to 25, but in some of the thunderstorms they could gust to 50. And even once the storm goes inland, keep in mind that you can have these trailing feeder bands that can produce some small tornadoes in isolated locations. So we're going to have a lot of showers around tomorrow. Be a little difficult in some areas to try to clean up with the shower activity. And the tides are going to stay up, maybe not all the way up to 8 feet, but in the 4 to at most 8 foot range around the region. As a whole, the southerly winds will keep the tides up. They're going to be slow to decrease. But by Thursday, I think they will begin to show a slow decrease over the region. Perhaps tomorrow night they could begin. Still showery on Thursday, so scattered showers, a few widely scattered thunderstorms, and a little breezy south to southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. So that gives you kind of an idea overall of what we're looking at with respect to how the weather will be going the next 2 days, because we know that the cleanup is going to be very important. And again, here's that satellite loop. We'll see in just a second the storm moving off to the west and then northwest during the day and this evening. So, John, the word is to err on the side of caution. And one thing, if you're threatened by a tornado, if you happen to be in an area of very heavy thunderstorms and your house starts creaking and so forth, go into an interior section, bottom floor, in a bathroom, hallway. That's where things are, the structures are strongest for you.
All right. Has that storm kind of slowed down or almost stalled a little bit, or am I just, we can see it on radar now and it's just my imagination? It seems like it's taking forever to hit land.
The problem is yesterday, because it's paralleling the land. That's the reason. If it was moving straight in, you'd see that motion, but instead it's paralleling the lower portion of Terrebonne Parish as it heads toward Vermilion Bay. And the other thing is, remember yesterday, at times it was moving as much as 21 miles an hour. Now it's only running around 14, 15.
Is the land affecting its movement in some ways?
The land is really so shallow, it has minimal effect in this particular area, but it might affect it just a touch.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Coming up on Eyewitness News Night Watch, a look at the relief efforts underway in Miami and also some other news of the day.
The Eagles will go south. The Bears will hibernate. And Saints fans will win.
Now you can share the Saints with a McDonald's collectible Zubaz glass. Just 39 cents each when you buy any extra value meal featuring Coca-Cola Classic.
So what about the Falcons game plan? It won't fly.
Lakeside Toyota, Louisiana's largest volume Toyota dealer, is closing out all 92 Toyotas in stock. New 92 Tercels, $149 down, $149 a month. Special purchase used 92 Tercels, $69.50. New 92 Corollas, $189 down, $189 a month. Special purchase used 92 Corollas, $89.50. Plus a 92 Program Camry, only $14,995.
Lakeside Toyota's the place. We'll put a smile on your face. You'll love what we do for you.
The Men's Warehouse opens in New Orleans.
If our substantially lower prices on men's designer clothing don't impress you, our excellent service will. I guarantee it.
In Gretna in the Oakwood Shopping Center. In Metairie across from Lakeside Mall.
Did you know that many of Louisiana's top car and truck dealers are on the West Bank? On the West Bank, we have lower overhead and sell more cars, so we charge less. With 12 dealerships and 20 different lines, there's variety, service, and most of all, low prices. Plus, the West Bank dealerships are close to each other, so it's easy to shop and compare. Take a drive, save some money, and don't be confused. When you're looking for a deal, come over to the West Bank. We sell more cars and trucks at prices you won't believe.
Divorcing parents can learn how to help their children through the stress of a family breakup. Family Service of Greater New Orleans presents an educational seminar called Children Cope with Divorce. For seminar information, call 822-0800.
Looters, disease, and desperation pose new threats for the survivors of the hurricane in South Florida. People are being advised to boil water or treat it with chlorine if they have no power. In the meantime, residents whose homes were destroyed spent the day salvaging what little they could from the rubble.
I just feel that it's extremely important that everybody works together and we find a way to get through this without tempers flaring. And this is a time when the community must come together so that we can all work together and get by this safe and sound and rebuild and get it back to where it was just 72 hours ago.
100 tons of military food, meals ready to eat, are headed to Miami for storm survivors left homeless. Here's a look at some other stories in the news today. Leaders from the former Yugoslav republics and officials from the U.S., Europe, and the United Nations met in London today to try to work out problems in that troubled region. President Bush today strongly defended his decision to stop the Persian Gulf War, even though it left Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein in power. Democrat Bill Clinton told veterans they have a right to vote against him because he didn't serve in the military, but Clinton says he hopes they would look to the future rather than remaining fixed on the problems of the past. And Woody Allen's young love interest returned to school in New Jersey, but school officials had to provide plenty of